Tales from the Manor. For condensed and reimagined tales of horror, suspense, sci-fi, and a dabble of fantasy. From the horror shelf, I bring you An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. A man stood on a railroad bridge in northern Alabama, staring down at the rushing water 20 feet below. His hands were tied behind his back, and a thick rope was looped tightly around his neck. The rope was fastened to a sturdy beam overhead, with the extra length hanging to his knees. Loose planks placed on the bridge's wooden ties served as a precarious platform for him and his executioners, 2 federal soldiers, under the command of a sergeant who, in civilian life, might have been a local deputy. A captain stood nearby, armed and observing silently. At each end of the bridge stood guards, their rifles held vertically in front of their chests. They didn't look toward the man at the center. Their job was simply to block access to the bridge. Beyond one guard, the railroad disappeared into a dense forest after 100 yards. On the opposite bank, a slope led up to a stockade, its walls made of sharp wooden stakes. A brass cannon protruded from a gap in the stockade, pointed directly at the bridge. About halfway up the slope stood a company of infantry, lined up neatly with rifles resting on the ground. A lieutenant stood at the end of the line, his sword tip touching the earth. Everyone stared toward the bridge, unmoving. The entire scene was solemn, as if the occasion demanded respect, even for a condemned man. The man about to be executed was Peyton Farquhar, a civilian. He appeared to be in his mid-30s with a straight nose, a firm mouth, and kind grey eyes. His dark hair was combed back neatly, and his clothing, a tailored coat, hinted at his status as a wealthy plantation owner. His dignified appearance seemed at odds with the noose around his neck. The sergeant signaled the soldiers, who stepped aside, removing the planks that had supported them. Now only Farquhar and the sergeant stood on the final plank. At a nod from the captain, the sergeant would step back, letting the plank tilt and sending Farquhar to his death. Farquhar stared down at the swirling water, noting a piece of driftwood moving lazily in the current. He closed his eyes, forcing his thoughts away from his dire situation and onto his family, his wife and children. But his concentration was broken by a strange metallic sound, rhythmic and sharp. It took him a moment to realize it was the ticking of his watch, amplified by his heightened senses. If I could free my hands, he thought, I might throw off the rope, dive into the water and escape. My home is outside enemy lines. My wife and children are safe there, if I can just get to the woods. Before he could plan further, the captain gave a nod. The sergeant stepped aside, and the plank tilted. Peyton Farquhar had always been devoted to the Southern cause. Though he hadn't joined the Confederate Army, he longed for a chance to contribute to the war effort. One evening, while sitting outside his home with his wife, a Confederate soldier stopped by for water. Farquhar eagerly asked for news from the front. "The Union forces have repaired the railroad up to Owl Creek Bridge," the soldier said. "They've fortified the north bank and posted orders. Any civilian caught interfering with the railroad or bridges will be hanged immediately." "How far is the bridge?" Farquhar asked. "About 30 miles. "And the guards?" "Only a picket post and 1 sentinel at the bridge," the soldier replied. The mention of dry driftwood piled against the bridge sparked an idea in Farquhar's mind. The soldier drank the water, thanked Farquhar's wife, and rode off. What Farquhar didn't know was that the soldier was a Union scout in disguise, sent to spread false information to lure Southern sympathizers into traps. As Farquhar fell through the air, time seemed to stop. The pain of the rope digging into his neck was unbearable, but then something unexpected happened. The rope snapped. He plunged into the cold water below, the impact jolting him back to consciousness. Fighting the noose still wrapped around his neck, he struggled to free his hands. With a burst of strength, he loosened the rope and tore it off, gasping as he surfaced. The world around him felt hyper-real. He could see every leaf on the trees, every ripple on the water, and hear the smallest sounds: a dragonfly's wings, the splash of fish. Above him, the soldiers on the bridge shouted and gestured. A shot rang out, the bullet splashing just inches away. More shots followed as he swam with the current, dodging and diving to avoid the hail of bullets. When the cannon fired, the water exploded around him. The blast pushed him further downstream, where he finally reached the southern bank. Exhausted but alive, he collapsed onto the gravel, savoring the feeling of the solid ground beneath him. Overwhelmed by relief, he stumbled into the woods, running toward home. Farquhar moved through the forest all day, guided by the sun. As night fell, he found a deserted road leading toward his plantation. The stars overhead looked unfamiliar, and the trees whispered in a language he couldn't understand. His neck throbbed, and he could still feel the ghostly pressure of the rope. Finally, as dawn broke, he saw his home in the distance. His wife stood on the porch, her arms outstretched. Overcome with emotion, Farquhar rushed to her, reaching out to take her in his arms. And then, darkness. Peyton Farquhar's body swung gently beneath Owl Creek Bridge. He had never escaped at all.